I think I'm supposed to get started. I want to welcome you to Misericordia University on behalf of our students, faculty, staff, the Board of Trustees, and our alumni. It's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's event as we are joined by Eva Mozes Kor, a Holocaust survivor and passionate presenter on the power of forgiveness. Eva's visit was delayed by a few months due to a record snowstorm back in March. You may remember that. But we are so pleased that we could reschedule and welcome her to campus. I wish to thank all the faculty and staff who made this event and last year's Deadly Medicine exhibit and lectures possible, including Dr. Amanda Caleb, who leads our cross-disciplinary medical and health humanities program, in addition to serving as associate professor in the English department, where she specializes in 19th century British literature. Amanda, could you please stand and be recognized? At Misericordia University, our mission calls us to offer quality academic programs that enhance critical thinking skills, that emphasize respect for persons in an environment where all are welcome. The people of our campus possess the rare ability to bring others together to form powerful, positive, and productive relationships. I know that Eva and her message of forgiveness in the context of great tragedy will inspire us to do even better in building relationships and fostering understanding among the people in our community and far beyond. Before we hear from Mrs. Kor, I'm privileged to announce a new initiative at Misericordia University, the Center for Human Dignity in Bioethics, Medicine, and Health. The center's mission will be to foster deepened understanding of medical practices and their ethical ramifications. The Center for Human Dignity will promulgate knowledge about the Holocaust and other past practices, current practices, and future medical endeavors. The center serves as a natural extension of Misericordia University's mission and its expertise in both the humanities and the health sciences. It will work with students, faculty, and the community to advance issues surrounding medical ethics. The driver for this initiative, Dr. Caleb, worked diligently to put together the proposal for the center, along with many of her colleagues in the faculty, staff, and the administration over the past 9 months. The center will be led by Dr. Stacy Gallen, who also played a large role in the Deadly Medicine exhibit last year in her ongoing role as the director of the Humanities Institute, an institute focused on reflection on medicine, ethics, and the Holocaust. Stacy, as a new member of our campus community, please stand and be recognized. You're going to hear more and see more news about the center in the weeks and months to come, but we felt that it was an appropriate time for us to share this exciting news with you tonight. Our special guest tonight, Eva Mozes Kor, is a survivor of the Holocaust, a forgiveness advocate, and a revered public speaker. Powered by a never-give-up attitude, Mrs. Kor has emerged through a life filled with trauma as a brilliant example of the power of the human spirit to overcome. She is a community leader, a champion of human rights, a tireless educator of young people, and in 1995, Mrs. Kor opened Candles Holocaust Museum and Education Center in Terre Haute, Indiana, with a mission to prevent prejudice and hatred through education about the Holocaust. Thousands of people, including many school groups, have visited Candles since it opened. In 2003, the museum was destroyed by a hate-filled arsonist. Mrs. Kor vowed to rebuild, and with the help of a generous outpouring of support, the museum was rebuilt and reopened in 2005. Eva has delivered her message all over the world, including several times in Germany, Israel, and Poland, and was a featured speaker on the 10th anniversary of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. Her story is documented in the award-winning film Forgiving Dr. Mengele and the popular young adult book Surviving the Angel of Death, the true story of a Mengele twin in Auschwitz. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Eva Mozes Kor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the fact that it's a very unique thing that you are opening, starting a program for the medicine ethics as a course in your university. Congratulations. My name is Eva Kor. I like to introduce myself, in case you don't know. I am a survivor of Auschwitz, a survivor of medical experiments conducted by Dr. Mengele, and now that I am 83 years old, I am trying to survive old age. And can you imagine if I succeed, what will happen? Dear friends, I am very pleased to speak to you today. My presentation is not the result of a well-researched academic paper, but is a fruit of my soul searching in trying to make some sense out of being a human guinea pig. In 1944, I was only a disposable human subject. If I had died, I would have been replaced by twins arriving on the next transport. I was a disposable human being who today is here to speak today to you about human rights and human experimentation in ethics in medicine. I realize that I am a subject who survived, but that I am here in the company of many distinguished academics. You are involved in researching law, medicine, human behavior, and ethics. I also realize that you have asked me to speak to you not because of my great academic credentials, but because you want to know how does it feel to be a human being used and abused in human experimentation. I applaud your efforts. This is the most appropriate tribute to the memory of those who died, including my twin sister, Eva Mozes Kor. My speech is divided in 4 parts. 1, how I survived Auschwitz. 2, how does it feel to be a human guinea pig and the lessons in ethics for today. 3, the lessons that I have learned from my unusual life, including forgiveness. And then part 4, I don't know if we will have any time, but I hope to have some time for questions and answers. In May 1944, we, the Mozes family, my father, Alexander Mozes, was 44, my mother, Jaffa, 38, my oldest sister, Edith, 14, my middle sister, Alice, 12, and Miriam and I, twins, we were 10 years old. We came from a tiny village of 100 families called Ports in Transylvania, Romania. In 1940, that part of Romania, Transylvania, was occupied by the Hungarians, and we became part of the Hungarian transport taken from Transylvania to the Auschwitz death camp. After 4 days in the crowded cattle car, the train stopped. I could see nothing, but I could hear a lot of Germans yelling orders outside. As soon as we stepped down from the cattle car onto a cement platform, my mother grabbed my twin sister and me by the hand. one on each side of her, hoping that she could protect us. As we were standing on the selection platform, bewildered, trying to figure out what this place was, as I looked around, I realized that my father and two older sisters were gone. I never saw them again. Clutching my mother's hand, I heard the Nazi yelling, "Twins, twins." We did not volunteer any information. He noticed Miriam and me because we looked alike and we were dressed alike. He asked my mother, "Are they twins?" My mother answered, "Is that good?" "Yes," said the Nazi. "Yes, they are twins," said my mother. Without any warning or explanation, he grabbed Miriam and me away from our mother. Our screaming and pleading fell on deaf ears. I remember looking back, seeing my mother's arms stretched out in despair as she was pulled away. I never even got to say goodbye to her. 30 minutes from the time we stepped down from the cattle car, our family was gone forever. I will never forget that little strip of cement called the selection platform. 85 feet by 35 feet, a strip of land where millions of people were ripped apart from their families forever. I don't believe that there is another strip of land like that anywhere in the world. We became part of a group of little girls, all twins, 13 set, age 2 to 16, and one mother whose name was Mrs. Changeri. I knew her because she was my mother's friend. We were marched to a huge building, a processing center. Our clothes were removed and we sat naked for most of the day. Late in the afternoon, our processing began. That meant our hair was cut short. Our dresses were returned with huge oil-painted red crosses on the back. Then they lined us up for registration and tattooing. When my turn came, I decided to give them as much trouble as a 10-year-old could. 4 people, 2 Nazis and 2 women prisoners, restrained me with all their strength while they heated a needle over the flame of a lamp. It was a long needle with a handle. It wasn't just a regular needle like you usually use for sewing. When it got hot, they dipped it into ink and they burned into my left arm, dot by dot, the capital letter A-7063. Miriam became capital A-7064. Auschwitz was the only Nazi camp that tattooed its inmates. Years later, Miriam told me that in addition to creating a general confusion, I beat the Nazi holding my arm. I am sure I was capable of doing it, but I don't remember biting anyone, because I was raised to be a nice girl. Nice girls and nice boys don't bite. So I must have blocked it out of my mind. To look back at my childhood is to remember my experiences as a human guinea pig in Auschwitz. To recount such memories is to relive the horrors of human experimentation where people were used only as subject for research. I remember the chimneys, the smell of burning flesh, the medical injections, the endless blood taking, the dead bodies that were everywhere, hunger, rats. These are part of my childhood memories. Nothing on the face of this earth can prepare anyone for a place like Auschwitz. At age 10, Miriam and I became part of a special group of children, twins used as human guinea pigs. 1,500 sets of twins were used by Dr. Joseph Mengele. That first night, when Miriam and I went to the latrine, there on the filthy floor were the scattered corpses of 3 children. This is when I realized that could happen to Miriam and me unless I did something to prevent it. So I made a silent pledge that I would do whatever is within my power to make sure that Miriam and I would not end up on that filthy latrine floor. In our barrack, we were twin girls, aged 2 to 16. At night, we huddled in our filthy bunk beds, crawling with lice and rats. We were starved for food, starved for human kindness, and starved for the love of the mothers and fathers we once had. We had no rights, but we had a fierce determination to live one more day, survive one more experiment. No one tried to minimize the risk to our lives. No one showed us any respect or consideration. On the contrary, we were there to be used in experiments at the mercy of the Nazi doctors. I was used in 2 types of experiments. 3 times a week, we would be placed naked in a room for up to 8 hours. Every part of my body was measured, compared to charts, and compared to my twin sister. These experiments were not dangerous, but they were very traumatic, and even in Auschwitz, I could not cope with the fact that I was treated like nobody, like a nothing. Our families were gone. Our lives depended on cooperating with the Nazi doctors, and we knew that. I felt that I was reduced to the lowest form of human existence, just a mass of living, breathing cells. Our childhood was gone. Our bodies were fodder for Mengele's experiments. All we had were our lives. And I concentrated all my efforts, all my talents, all my being on one single thing: survival. 3 times a week, we would be taken to another lab that I named the blood lab. They would tie both of my arms, take a lot of blood from my left arm, and give me a minimum of 5 injections into my right arm. Those were the deadly ones. After one of those injections, I became very ill with a very high fever that I desperately tried to hide, because the rumor was that anyone taken to the hospital never came back. On my next visit to the blood lab, the doctors measured my fever instead of tying my arms, and I was immediately taken to the hospital. The hospital was another barrack that looked filled with people who looked more dead than alive. Next morning, Dr. Mengele came in with 4 other doctors to see me. They never examined me. Mengele looked at my fever chart. Then he declared, laughing sarcastically, he said, "Too bad. She's so young. She has only 2 weeks to live." I was all alone. The doctors I had did not want to save my life. They wanted me dead. Miriam was not with me, and I missed her very much. She was the only kind, loving person I could cuddle up with when I was hungry, cold, or ill. Even though I was very sick and all alone, I refused to die. and made a second silent pledge that I will do anything and everything within my power to prove Mengele wrong, to survive, and be reunited with Miriam. For the next 2 weeks, I was between life and death. I remember waking up on the barrack floor as I was crawling because I couldn't walk to reach a faucet with water at the other end of the barrack. This barrack was not even allocated any water because people were brought there to die. As I was crawling, I would fade in and out of consciousness, and I kept telling myself, I must survive, I must survive. Dying in Auschwitz was very easy. Surviving was a full-time job. After 2 weeks, my fever broke and I felt much better. 3 weeks later, my fever chart showed normal and I was released and reunited with Miriam. I spoiled the experiment. I survived. When I was in Auschwitz, I thought that the whole world was a big concentration camp. Children lose their point of reference. In the end of August 1944, I saw an airplane flying very low. I could see the American flag on one of the wings. That gave me hope that somebody was trying to free us. And hope in Auschwitz was in very short supply. The air raids continued until January 27, when Auschwitz was liberated by the Soviet army, just 4 days before my 11th birthday. We were free. We were alive. We have triumphed over unbelievable evil. The glory of that day will ever be engraved in my heart, and the echoes from Auschwitz will always be part of my life. My silent pledge that first night in Auschwitz became a reality. Part 2. I, Eva Mozes Kor, a survivor of Mengele's experiments, have learned that human rights in human experimentation is an issue that needs to be addressed and taught. Those of you who are studying medicine, nursing, or research scientists, ethics are to be congratulated. You have chosen a wonderful and difficult profession. Wonderful because you can save human life. Difficult because you are walking a very narrow line. You have been trained to use good judgment, clear logic, but you cannot forget that you are dealing with human being. The moment you forget, you are crossing that narrow line and you are heading in the direction of the Dr. Joseph Mengele. Those of you who do research must be compelled to obey the international law and code of ethics. Scientists should continue to do research, and I have personally benefited from your work. In 1987, my son, Dr. Alex Kor, was diagnosed with an advanced case of testicular cancer that metastasized in his lungs and lymph nodes. I am so grateful to your medical research that found a cure for my son, and I want to thank Dr. Lawrence Einhorn of Indiana University Medical Center for saving my son's life. So I am personally aware that medical science can benefit mankind, but it can also be greatly abused. The scientists today must make a moral commitment never to violate a person's human right and human dignity, and they must respect the wishes of their subject. every time you are involved in human experimentation or you are dealing with a patient, you should put yourself in the place of your subject and see how would you feel. You must remember that research is done for the sake of mankind and not for the sake of science. You can never detach yourself from the subject you serve. If you do not know what to do, just ask yourself, would I want to be treated this way if I were one of the research subjects or one of the patients? And if the answer is no, then you are doing the wrong thing. The dignity of all human beings must be respected, preserved, and protected at all costs. Life without it is a mere existence. I experience such loss of dignity every day in Mengel's lab. These same doctors who had taken an oath to help and save human lives, they were violating their Hippocratic oath. Throughout this world, the idea of respecting human rights and human dignity are often violated. I hope that my words will touch your heart, that anytime you see or encounter any human experimentation or violation of it, you will be the person who will stand up to protect them. Part 3. Before I go to part 3, I am going to talk about the life lessons that I use. In all my lectures, I have 3 life lessons. I call them life lessons because these are lessons I have learned in my life. Life lesson number 1, never ever give up. Because ever you give up, there is nothing going to happen. And in all college atmosphere, I don't see you very well. That light is kind of dim. But I'm sure that there are lots of young people. I want you to know that growing up is very hard. It's very hard, even if you live in the United States, in Pennsylvania, and even if you have loving parents, which is a wonderful idea. Can you imagine if every child in the world would have loving parents? It would be a different world. But even then, if even your loving parents are wealthy enough to buy you the latest craze of designer jeans with holes in them, actually, the latest ones are not even holes. I found they put patches. So that is the latest one I see. Even then, every single one of you young people wonders, how on earth will I fit into this big, big world? Will I be able to accomplish what I set out to do? And I can tell you, if you keep trying, it is your wonderful minds that will work and will come up with ideas. In the last year, I became fascinated with the human mind. And if anybody is ever here and sits in a room and is bored, I'm sure that young people get bored easily. And you don't have an iPhone and television is out and you don't know what to do. It could happen. Look around. Even in this room, there is a ceiling, there are walls, floors, windows, lights, tables, chairs. Did any of these things grow on a tree? No. Where on earth did they come from? Somebody had to think about it. Every single thing that doesn't grow naturally outside Somebody had to think about that. That is mind-boggling. I mean, I wish I would have been Alexander Graham Bell and come up with a telephone, or Edison, but they have already invented it over 100 years ago. Isn't that fascinating that somebody could come up with ideas like that? And of course, now we are much more advanced. We can even do holograms, and you can talk to a hologram. We have one at our museum, and I will be having my own hologram where you can push a button, ask a question, and that image is going to answer you. How about that? So, next time you are in a room sitting and being bored, I want you to do me a favor. Think of one single idea that you can do to make the world better. Can you imagine what kind of answers we will get? I guarantee to you that you are not going to be bored. So that's all you have to remember. If I am bored, I am going to use the time to come up with some kind of an idea that will make the world better, because that is quite possible. Everything comes from this wonderful thing called the mind. Life lesson number 2. Prejudice. What is prejudice? Prejudice means to prejudge people without really knowing them. Did Hitler know me and Miriam? No, he had never met me. Yet he wanted to kill me. Prejudice always hurts the victims. But in my opinion, prejudice destroys societies that permit it to happen. So what, again, we use our wonderful minds to treat other people with fairness and respect. And we can eliminate prejudice from the face of this earth. Life lesson number 3 will be forgiveness. So let's see what happened. After liberation, Miriam and I were refugees for 9 months. We arrived home to find nothing but 3 crumbled pictures on a bedroom floor, and that was all. That was left of our family. From 1944 until 1995, for 51 years, I felt deep emotional pain. I was a victim who was angry with the world and who could not be really happy. I was physically liberated from Auschwitz in 1945. I liberated myself from the emotional pain in 1995 when I forgave the Nazis, and this is what happened. When Miriam was expecting her first child in 1960, she developed severe kidney infections. With the second pregnancy, the infection got even worse, and after the doctors studied her, they discovered that Miriam's kidneys were still the size that they were when she was 10 years old in Auschwitz. After the third pregnancy, her kidneys failed, and in 1987, I donated my left kidney, which is 30 years ago. We were a perfect match. But a year after the transplant, she developed cancerous polyps in her bladder, the only one among 2,000 transplantees at that hospital to develop such cancer. Doctors in Israel kept urging me to find our Auschwitz file experiments. If they knew what was injected into Miriam, maybe they could help her. I have done everything humanly possible, but I have never found our files, never found out what was injected into our bodies. Miriam's cancer metastasized everywhere, and she died Sunday, June 6, 1993. I came home from a real estate open house Sunday afternoon, there was a message on my answering machine telling me that Miriam died. I called Israel, asking my brother that, telling him I would catch the first flight to Israel. He told me not to bother because the funeral was in 10 hours and there was no way for me to get to Israel. I would have needed at least 24 hours. Israel is 7 hours ahead of United States. A flight from Terre Haute to Tel Aviv would have taken at least 18 hours to get there. I pleaded with my brother-in-law to wait for me, since I have never buried any member of my family, but my request fell on deaf ears. I wanted to say goodbye to her, and I wanted to say goodbye to my kidney she was taking with her. After Miriam's death, I developed nightmares. I would wake up at night suffocating, and I could feel how she died. Then I could not go back to sleep. I knew that I would have to do something in her memory. That was my way of coping. 2 years after her death, I opened Kendall's Holocaust Museum and in memory of Miriam, and my nightmares stopped. About a month after Miriam's death, unrelated to her death, I received a telephone call from Dr. John Michalczyk from Boston College. He asked me to speak at a conference on Nazi medicine and said, when you come to Boston, it would be really nice if you could bring with you a Nazi doctor. I was shocked at his request, and I said, where exactly do you think I can find one of those guys? Last time I looked, they were not advertising in the telephone book. He said, very nice that you joke about it, but I want you to think, maybe you come up with some idea. And next day I remembered that Miriam and I worked together before she died on a project. It was a documentary about the Mengele twin done by a German television, and it was finished in 1992. And when I watched that documentary, there was a Nazi doctor from Auschwitz. His name was Dr. Hans Munch. He was not my doctor, but I figured if he was alive in 1992, he might be still alive in 1993. I contacted Dr. Munch and invited him to come to Boston. He said to me that he wasn't coming to Boston, but he was willing to meet with me at his house in Germany. I was very, very nervous. Actually, I was scared to death to meet a Nazi doctor. But I was also curious. Maybe he knew something about our experiments. And I was curious, why was he willing to meet with me? I arrived at his house with 2 camera crews from RTL television, with 2 producers, 2 interpreters. Dr. Munch treated me with the utmost respect, kindness, and consideration. He told me that he was sorry, but he knew nothing about our experiment because Mengele always said that the twins' experiments were top secret. He gave me a good interview for my Boston conference, and out of the blues, I never planned to ask that question. I heard myself say, Dr. Munch, while you were in Auschwitz, did you ever walk by the gas chamber? Did you ever go inside the gas chamber? Do you know how the gas chamber operated? And he said, yes, that is my problem. That is a nightmare that I live with every single day of my life. Then he went on describing the operation of the gas chamber. He told me that when everybody was dead, he looked through a peephole. He was outside, stationed outside, looking through people. When everybody was dead, he signed one death certificate. No names, just the number of people who were murdered. That was new information for me. I have never heard about it before. So I told Dr. Munch it was important information, and then I asked him to go with me to Auschwitz for the 50th anniversary of the liberation of the camp in 1995 and sign a document at the ruins of the gas chamber in the company of witnesses. He immediately agreed, which I was very pleased and surprised. I came home to Terre Haute, Indiana, excited that I would have a document about the operation of the gas chamber signed by a Nazi. And if I ever met Holocaust deniers, I could take this document and kind of shove it in their face. I needed proof for myself from someone who was there, who witnessed it as a Nazi and not as a Jew. And now could document it. It was a wonderful way to try to fight the revisionists. I wanted to thank him. I wanted to thank this Nazi doctor for his willingness to document the gas chamber, but I did not know how to thank a Nazi. I didn't want to tell anybody about it because it sounded even strange to me. So I went to the local Hallmark shop, section marked thank you cards, and began reading card after card after card for 2.5 hours. When two ladies came up to me smiling and said, "You have been reading those cards for a long time." I said, "Yes." They asked me, "Are you finding what you are looking for?" I said, "No, not really." "Well, what are you looking for? Maybe we can help you find it." "No, thank you," I said. I left the card shop, but I could not give up my idea of finding a meaningful gift for Dr. Munch. So for the next 10 months, I went back to my life lesson number 1. When I was cooking, cleaning, drying the cat, I kept brainstorming by myself, asking myself, what can I give Dr. Munch? How can I thank Dr. Munch? After 10 months, a simple idea popped into my mind. How about a letter of forgiveness from me, the Auschwitz survivor, to the Nazi doctor? I knew right away that Dr. Munch would like it. But what I discovered for myself was life-changing. I discovered that I had the power to forgive. No one could give me that power, and no one could take it away. All victims in the world are hurt, angry, feel hopeless, feel helpless, and feel powerless. And I discovered I had a power that I did not know about. It took me 4 months to write a letter of forgiveness to a Nazi. Then I was concerned about my spelling. My diction in English is good. My spelling is not. So I didn't want to be embarrassed. I called my former English professor to correct my spelling. So she said to me the 3rd time we met, "Eva, that is very nice that you are forgiving Dr. Munch, but your problem is with Dr. Mengele." I was trying to debate that issue. She said, "Okay, I want to ask you a favor. When you go home today, pretend that you are talking to Dr. Mengele and telling him that you forgive him, because I want to know how it will make you feel." Sounded like an interesting idea. I went home that night, got a dictionary, looked up some nasty word and made a list of 20 words. Once I finished the list, I read the word clear and loud to that make-believe mangler in my room. And I said, in spite of all that, I forgive you. And it made me feel very good that I even had the power to forgive the angel of death of Auschwitz. And there was nothing that he could do to change it. Now, if I forgave the worst of them, Mengele, I decided to forgive everybody who has ever hurt me. This way I arrived in Auschwitz with Dr. Munch. I took my son, Alex, and my daughter, Rina. Dr. Munch came with his son, his daughter, and his granddaughter. Dr. Munch signed his document about the operation of the gas chamber. I read and signed my document. I immediately felt that all the pain that I carried around for 50 years was lifted from my shoulder. I was no longer a victim of Auschwitz, nor was I a prisoner of my tragic past. Forgiveness is an act of self-healing, self-empowerment that brings serenity, freedom, and peace. Anger is a seed for war. Forgiveness is a seed for peace. We are talking about medical ethics. I call forgiveness a modern miracle medicine. You do not need to belong to an HMO. There is no copay. It will not burst your budget. It's free. It has no side effects. It works. You do not need to fill out any informed consent forms, nor any compliance forms. For those people who are not sure if they will miss their pain, if you don't like the way you feel, you can always go and take your pain back. In 1984, I founded an organization called Candles. It's all capital letters. In 1995, I founded Candles Holocaust Museum and Education Center in Terre Haute, Indiana. I like the name because candles are used as a memorial and candles illuminate. Candles is an acronym for children. If you write the word vertically, candles, and then children of Auschwitz, Nazi deadly lab experiment survivors. I wanted to shed some light on the darkest chapter of the Holocaust, the chapter of children used as human guinea pigs. Somebody said that the light of one single candle can illuminate the darkness of the entire universe. I am asking every single one of you to remember the Nuremberg Code, and as you leave my presentation, wherever life takes you, become a glowing light, an example of caring and ethical behavior, and never use a human being in experiments without informed consent. I am hoping in small way to send the world a message of hope, a message of healing, a message of forgiveness, a message of peace. Thank you for listening to my lecture, and as I look around here, I see a powerful beam of light going out of this room, spreading throughout the world to illuminate all the dark corner of human rights and human experimentations throughout the world. Congratulations, you survived my lecture.